This is part 2 of black and white portraiture, this time photographing a female model. To see photographing a male model, watch part 1.
So what I'm doing is setting up an Octabox 150 at the moment. I'm just putting a slight angle on the softbox. So it's a sort of 45 degrees here. And I'm going to get Evie in a second. I'm just getting this right first because I'm just going to go with this single light setup to begin with and see where it goes from there. I'm going to put a chair back in for this one. I'm just going to get Evie to sit off sideways for a straight portrait here. Simple portrait, one chair, grey background, grey wall. And I've asked Evie to go with a sort of bare shoulder look. I'm going to look just through camera first and just kind of figure things out. I haven't even got light on Evie at the moment. I'm just looking at what might work. Just going to go with an upper body portrait. I'm not even going to see the trousers. I'm just going to cut it at the waist area. So I'm getting down to about Evie's eye level for this one. Now I'm on the 100mm lens still. So this is equivalent to 85mm on a 35mm format camera. So nothing would be different if you were using 35mm format camera. It's just simply that I've got, a bit more resolution, and also it loads faster into the focus software for me here, which makes it easier for you guys to see what is going on. So with the modeling lamp on its low power, I can't even see it at the moment through the softbox. So I'm going to put this up to full power on the modeling light. There we go. Now the light on Evie is a 150 softbox. Now at the moment in its position, inverse square law, her head is the closest thing to the light. The next closest thing is her shoulder. So this is going to be the brightest part, and we want it to be the brightest part, but it may be too bright here relative to the rest. I don't know yet. I will have to take a test shot. Okay, so first test, the 150. Let's have a look and see how Evie looks. And she looks lovely as usual. I've got a nasty reflection off of my background. There's a bit of where the join is, there's a bit of a shiny patch there. We can see that Evie's still quite underexposed here, but the look of the light is quite nice. I'm going to go up half a stop, and then I can adjust the rest of my exposure from camera because I'm at f8 at the moment and I can afford to open up if need be. So we're just going to take that shot again. Let's have a look at that. Right, so now the exposure's up brighter, but for me, I'm looking at the contours on Evie's face. I'm just going to zoom in on that. Just looking at the contours and the shapes of the shadows under the eyes here, under the eyebrows and under the jaws. They don't look quite right to me. It's too top lit, okay? So I'm just going to adjust that by moving the light to be more frontal, and to do that I just have to move the light backwards a little bit from Evie's perspective so that it will light more frontal. It will now be darker because it's further away from her. So I'll just show you the difference that has made. So we take the shot again. So now it's going to be darker. But I'm going to compensate on that by adjusting. There you can see how the light changed though. Look how the shape of the light changed on the face. If we look at the shadows under the eyes there, that's the old shot, that's the new shot. So look how the shadow density has got lighter, even though the exposure overall has got a bit darker. But this is the difference in your position of light. Careful positioning of light. There's the old shot, there's the new shot. Old shot, new shot. So we can adjust how it looks and how it feels, and I'm just going to assess that again. There's something quite nice about the drama in that. That may be a little bit flat, so I'm going to go back halfway. So this is the thing by assessing it by eye. Just making these decisions based on what you see and the results that you get. Now, the other thing is that it's still underexposed. So I'm at f8. I'm going to open up to f6.8 now, rather than adjust the power of the light on this one. Just going to check my focus on Evie's eyes there. Looks about good there. Right, okay, so now the exposure is better for Eevee. You can see the amount of fall off of light that is hitting the background. So it is allowing us to see a grey background because we're using a big softbox. And by using a big softbox, we're getting a more flattering light, which we get on a female, which is good. I want to make some more texture. See this bit here? This bit was a bit plain. So I want to create a few more wrinkles there because that is nice in fabric to get a little bit of texture like that. Let's just have a look at that change there. It also reveals a little bit more on the arm. I'm just going to take that test shot there. There we go. That feels nicer to me. We got more contours. If we look at what's going on down here now, this lovely texture in the fabric. And if we go back to the previous shot, there's without it, you see. So it's little changes like that, little things that can make the world of difference. Now, we've got this problem here, look, with this line on my background, and that's where the two MDF boards are joined together. But I'm not going to move that now because it'll require too much moving. You're just going to have to imagine that I photoshopped that bit out afterwards. Now, this is a really beautiful, elegant, simple portrait in its own right with one light. It's just a one light setup. And again, we can just add a little bit more atmosphere to it potentially by bringing a second light in, a background light, into the shot to throw a little bit of a glow onto the background, especially if I can find a grid to put in it. If I can get this in properly. Right, I'm going to turn the modelling lamp down though, because I don't want the modelling lamp overpowering in the shot. Let's take a test shot now on that. Let's have a look now. There we go. So we've got a sort of elegant glow coming around Eevee, but I think it's probably a little bit too strong and it's a little bit too high in terms of its position. So I'm going to angle it downwards slightly and over slightly, just to there. Hopefully that's not in the shot, on the edge of my shot. No, there's plenty out there. Let's take a look at that again. Let's just see the position. There, we've moved it down. It's probably moved a little bit far to the right. So I'm just going to flick through these shots to see which I prefer. So that's without it. That's with it in the center left. That's with it center right. So I think I've taken it too far to the right there, but it's not bad. It's not bad. For a very simple, quick portrait setup, that's not bad. We could, and there's another thing we could do, we could tilt it down even more, but we could increase its intensity. So I'm tilting it almost down at the floor now so that it's well out of shot, but it's going to bounce off the floor and it'll probably spread a bit more lower down. So I've turned it up 2 stops. So it's gone up from power 5 to power 7. Let's have a look what it does here. There, so now that's what you get when you angle it down at the floor. You get more of a feathering gradient coming up, but you can see that's far too strong. It's taking over from our hero, from our main subject, which is our model. So what I can choose to do now is just simply turn it down in power. Let's take it down 1 stop first of all. Just going to dump the power out of it to make sure there's no residual power. I'm going to take that shot again. That one feels really nice. And you can see how simple that was. Very, very simple setup there. 2 lights. 150 Octabox on a Cirrus and a P70 reflector with a looser grid to get that larger glowing gradient in the background. So, you know, even if you've got a limited amount of lighting, you could have done that actually with a speed light. You could have done certainly the top softbox with a speed light. The background glow would have been a bit more tricky because you really need a better modifier to create that ball of light on the background. Let's go back to the shot, Ben. So you can see how straightforward it was to get a lovely, simple portrait. Okay, let's take a couple of questions while I have a look at what I'm going to do next. Any questions there?
Yeah, we've got some questions here. So we've got Jeff who's asking why the grey background and not black, just curious.
You can usually make dark grey black by not lighting it or by moving your model away. It's very difficult to make black anything other than black, and light grey I find gets affected too much by your main lights, and you end up struggling adding flags and things in to block your main lights from hitting your background when you use a light grey. Too many studio photographers, in my opinion, they go for that very straight mid-grey, neutral grey, and then they have a lot of trouble controlling it. I always go, as you can see, a very dark thunder grey or granite grey, and by using the dark grey, I think I can control the atmosphere one way or the other, darker or lighter, just by using light with it.
A question here from Jitesh who's saying, hello Carl, how is it that underlighting doesn't give the most pleasing effect, but it seems to work in the case of some portraits and beauty shots? In which cases can we use it?
I wouldn't recommend it at all. Underlighting is an unnatural position. It's an unnatural light source to go from under. And then what happens is you get this sort of, horror look to the picture. You can use a fill light from underneath, a reflector, or another light from below, as long as it's less powerful than your key light from above. Take a break on the questions for now, because I'm going to set up something different. Evie, you can jump out of there. The next shot we're going to do is that sort of bare shoulder back one with the, the sort of movie style with a harder light source, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hard light source on Evie that's going to give stronger defined shadows. So I'm going to go with a medium grid to start with. Let's get you in, please. So hop onto that chair. I want to shoot the shoulder of Evie and a bit of the back here. So it almost looks like she's naked, and just the side profile of the head. And I'm just going to tilt the head. So I've asked Evie to put her hair up on this one. I'm going to turn your head that way a little bit. And I just want to see a little hint of this eye, the jawline, and I'm going to fire a sharp, hard light onto Evie's face. Try and control that light to there, probably a light on the background. So very much more sort of movie style-esque picture. Right, get him around there. What I'm looking at here, can you see the shadow under Evie's nose here? I'm looking where this shadow is going to go on the face. So I want a bit of shadow here. So I want the light going the same direction that Evie's sort of looking, so it's not too aggressive, but I'm looking for a little bit of a shadow. The shadow is running, look at the way the shadow is running this way, because the lights come this way. I want the shadow running that way, okay? So I don't want the shadow coming forward. So to correct that, I need to move the light this way so the shadow goes the other way. Right, so that shadow should be going the other way now, or mostly the other way. So I think that's a good starting point. One light, here we go. Let's take a test shot. Now Evie's got to remember her pose now, and she's got to sort of stick with it. Right, so we can see my one light is too bright, far too bright on Evie. So I'm going to take that down 3/10 of a stop to begin with. I'm going to do it again. I'll refocus on the eye there at the front. I'm just going to get the exposure about right on Evie on the face first of all. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. We've got light on Evie's face, but we've got no light on the shoulder, and I want to get a little bit of light on the shoulder. Right, so I'm going to just use a slightly looser grid. So this is still a tight grid, but it's not as tight as the one I've got on here. So the beam spread will be a little bit wider on this one, and it might then, well, it will bring the shoulder into it a little bit more. Now, because it's a narrower beam, a wider beam, it's also going to get brighter in exposure. So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit before I do this next test shot. Let's have a look here. Get my focus, and let's have a look what happens on Evie's face now. Right, there we're getting a little bit light on the shoulder, but next thing I want to do now, though, is add a glow up on the background. So I'm going to bring in this softbox for a glow. I'm going to find that low stand. So I'm going to add this softbox in. Let's try there. And if that's too high, we'll have to move it down onto the floor. It's just visible. Let's just have a look how much light it throws onto the background first of all. Right, so not enough light on the background. I want to get it over to this side as well. I'm going to move it to here, angle it down a little bit, turn it up 2 stops, and do a test on that one. Let's just adjust this a little bit more. Okay, so now we've got a glow coming from the upper left side, which is about right, which is about what I was looking for. But the shadows are all too dense, okay? So the shadows on Evie everywhere, under the nose and everything else are too dense. Now this is where you can bring your overall ambient fill light in. So I just need to get another light like this, for example, fire it into the ceiling. I'm going to take the grid off, and I'm going to fire one into this side of the studio, which will take care of the density on the shadows on Evie's side. And I'm going to fire this one into this side of the studio, which will take care of the density of shadows on the other side. So I'm just going to put a reflector dish on so that the light goes up to the ceiling and doesn't spill into the rest of the shot. Now, this is where you've got to be quite careful, because it might end up getting Evie to lean out of the light. Right, there you go. Look at the difference now in the density of the shadows. Let me flick between the 2 shots. There's the new one, there's the old one. So I haven't done anything to the main light or the background light. All I've done is thrown some light into the ceiling of the studio. And now I can start to bring more light into the ceiling as I like, to reduce the shadows. So if I want to reduce the shadows under Evie's nose, maybe angle it a little bit more there, go up a stop more on this side. I'll go up a stop more on this side. And this is what I call ambient fill. Even though it's not ambient light, I call it ambient fill because it's more of a general, broader light that I'm just throwing around the studio. Let's take a look at how the shadows change on this one. There, so you see now it's too bright. Probably a bit too bright now. So we've lost some sort of drama and atmosphere because the face is now not sort of the winning thing in the shot. So I took it up a stop each side. So I'm going to take this one down 7/10 of a stop. And I'm going to take this one down half a stop on this side. Okay, 1 stop, as you know, is the difference between F8, F11 or F5.6 and F8. 1 stop of light, that's half the light or double the light. So you go a stop higher, you're doubling the light. You go a stop lower, you're halving the light. There we go. Now you see how that's really quickly changed there. Let's look at the 3 ratios. We started there. No, we started there. We added some general fill light around the studio. Then we added too much, and now I've taken it back a little bit to about there, which feels quite nice. I think the thing is the glow on the back of the studio wall isn't intense enough for me. It's not defined enough, so I'm going to try and strengthen that in, but without getting it in the shot. So I'm just moving it in closer to the background. Try and make that glow come up more from that bottom left. Take the shot. We should see a stronger glow in the bottom left now. There you go. So it's looking more like a movie portrait, a movie style portrait. That glow is coming up from the same side the lighting's coming from. We've got the stronger, harsher shadows. Right, so I'm going to leave it at that one, on that one. I think that's been a successful session. Evie, you're free to get down from there now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you picked up a few tips. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much.